Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Mark chapter 16 is where we're in right now. I want to continue in the incredible story of what took place after the resurrection. In Mark chapter 16, there's a passage that comes at the end from verse 9 through to verse 20, which many manuscripts don't actually have. But some would say that they didn't include it in the original scriptures for the canon of scripture, but it's there for us to read, and if you want to use it, then I'm sure that's very legitimate as well, and I do, because it tells beautifully some more of the account of Jesus that is verified in the other Gospels. So I'm going to use the Gospel of Luke just to help me with the passage for today. It says this: Afterwards, Jesus appeared in different form to two of them while they were walking in the country. You see, afterwards the disciples had all run away, and now that after the crucifixion they'd heard about the resurrection, and some of them decided that this was true or this was not true. Many left disappointed, disillusioned, because this Jesus was not the one that they thought, or was not as per the one that they thought he should be. And these two men are on their road to Emmaus, and Jesus meets with them. How beautiful. Two renegades, two disappointed, two disillusioned individuals. And Jesus took time to seek them out, to find them, to meet with them, and to meet their greatest need, which was not a need for anything other than a need to have their hearts fired up again. And so Jesus meets with these guys. There's a conversation with them. And as he's about to leave, they say, "Hey, don't you want to stay for supper with us?" And Jesus said, "Yes, I'll stay for supper with you." And then as they broke bread, suddenly their eyes were open. It says, verse 30, when he sat at the table with them, he, that is Jesus, took bread, he gave thanks, broke it, and began to give it to them. Then their eyes were opened, and they recognized him, and he disappeared from their sight. Remember that night of the Last Supper, where Jesus did kind of this. He took the bread, he broke it, he took the cup, and after he had blessed it, he gave it to his disciples. And now he's doing it with these two runaways, and suddenly as they hear those words, take, eat, take, drink, suddenly something happened in their minds, or maybe not even in their mind, but certainly in their eyes, because they suddenly recognized him for who he was. And it says their eyes were opened. And we're talking about physical eyes. Their physical eyes were very much wide and awake and opened. He was talking about their spiritual eyes. You see, people, if we want to see some of the truths of Scripture, if we want to understand some of the deeper truths of the Scripture, we're going to stop trying to look at them through physical eyes. We're going to see them through spiritual eyes. Now remember Elisha at the city of Dothan, and his servant looked outside of the wall and saw King Ahab's army there to get them. And he goes down to Elisha and he says, "Elisha, we're done. We're toast. They've got us. We're surrounded. They're going to kill us." And Elijah probably smirked and laughed. And he said, "Oh, Lord, won't you just open my servant's eyes?" And suddenly his servant's spiritual eyes were opened. And he looked into the heavens. He saw the chariots of fire and the angels and the heavenly army. And he said to Elisha, he said, "Oh, now I understand, because greater who is with us than he who's outside of the wall." Isn't that beautiful? But in order for us to see that, we have to have spiritual eyes. I often, when I do a funeral, will refer to this. You see, for us, the biggest enemy in the world is death. And we look at Jesus and we say, well, surely that was his biggest enemy. No, that was not his biggest enemy. It was our biggest enemy. And in order for us to see death for what it is, people, we've got to see it through spiritual eyes. Because if you look at death through physical eyes, it's very morbid and it's very, very miserable. But you look at death through spiritual eyes, it's not the end as it is through physical eyes. It's the beginning of something fantastically new and something that is going to be totally awesome. If we could see death through spiritual eyes, I've got to tell you guys, we would see something totally different. If we could see life through spiritual eyes, we'd live very differently. If we could see life not so much through physical eyes, and we're aging and we got problems and we got issues, if we could see those problems and issues and aging through spiritual eyes, I got to tell you people, a new joy would be restored to your step. New hope would be kindled in your heart. New power and pressure would be coming from your mind to conform to the teachings of Jesus if we could just see through spiritual eyes. You know, in 1 Corinthians 13, it says that we see through a glass darkly. We see through, with this life we're looking at through kind of like a hazy glass. You know, like that bathroom glass. We see life through bathroom glass, and we can see shapes, we can see forms. We look at death through like the bathroom glass, and we see shapes and we see forms, and we see what it isn't actually. But when we have spiritual eyes, we look straight through that glass as if it's as clear as anything. And we put on new glasses that suddenly give us this ability to be able to see life through spiritual eyes. Every problem comes into conforming with the ways of God when we see problems through spiritual eyes. Every issue of life, if we could just, people, see it through spiritual eyes, what a difference it would make to all of us. Certainly did it for the two guys on the road to Emmaus. It says us that immediately, I don't think they even finished their supper. They said immediately when their eyes had been opened, they immediately dropped everything, went back to Jerusalem, and joined up again with the disciples in the upper room to pray. If it did it for them, I would tell people, it could do it for us too. So people, for goodness sake, open your spiritual eyes. Ask God to open them and begin to see things as they really are. Not as you perceive them to be because you're looking through the glass darkly, but to see them as they really are. Because that's the real deal, is your spiritual eyes. Ask God to do for you what he did for that servant of Elisha, what he did for the guys on the way to Emmaus, and watch what kind of life you now begin to live. I really hope, I really pray that that be your glorious experience. It's amazing. I just love this stuff. The power of the resurrection, spiritual eyes. Let's see life like that too. Have a great day. Bye-bye.